Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I am so excited for today's episode because I remember way back in the day when I first started my business and I would hear people talk about the importance of operations in business. I thought to myself, what operations? I'm a one-man operation. What do I have to worry about operations? Well, today's guest runs an agency and a consultancy that does so much incredible work to help other businesses actually have strategic and intentional operations. So no matter where you are in your business journey, today's guest is going to be really insightful in showing you how to be considerate and thoughtful in all of the ways that your business operates, from client onboarding to invoicing to all the stuff that we all like to forget about, and the craziness and the excitement of actually doing the things that we like to do. So let me tell you all about today's guest. Her name is Kat Oldershaw. Kat is the founder of kat&co, which was founded in 2020. She's a California native. She's a creative. She's an operations specialist. Together, in good company, she started kat&co to respond to the growing need of design operations support in her community. Now, her company, like I said, it's a business operations consultancy that provides full service support, strategy, and partnership to creative businesses. We'll talk about all the cool businesses and industries that she works within. She believes in empowering your creativity through intuitive business support. And you'll see that she really serves her clients on different depth levels. If you want to work with someone one-on-one, Kat has solutions there. If you want templates for all the things that we don't like to think about, like contracts and things that we like to ignore, she's got solutions there. We're going to learn a lot from her, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Kat Oldershaw. All right, Kat, I'm really excited for this one today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. What a great intro.
Heck yes.
I'm so excited to talk with you.
Likewise, because honestly, I mean it. We throw a lot of words around in the world of entrepreneurship and business, and operations, I feel like, is one of them, where we talk about having streamlined operations and the importance of it, but you're going to take us there today. But before we do, walk us beyond the bio. Who the heck is Kat? How'd you even start doing all these cool things?
Awesome. Well, I have a background in psychology. I received my degree at UC Berkeley, and the human experience has always been a big interest of mine for as long as I can remember. And I think that really has a big play in my work now. After graduating, I actually got my start in biotech, but very quickly I decided to make the jump to a more creative industry. I actually started as an executive assistant at an interior design firm in Napa. I don't have a design degree, so I was really just hitting the ground running, kind of by my bootstraps and figuring it out as I went along. From there, I quickly grew into more operations-focused roles, everything from managing the office, managing the shop, if it was a design build, client experience, and, being that first point of contact for the client, presentations, installations. I was there actually installing the furniture on site, logistics, everything. Basically anything besides the actual schematic work of, doing the designs in AutoCAD. I wanted to get my hands into everything. And, I relocated down to Los Angeles, where I am now. Here, I managed within a variety of firms, from custom furniture, fine art, and again, of course, interior design. I began providing business operations consulting about 2 years ago. And, since then, I've been taking on more and more clients, growing my business, and I'm 100% full-time consulting now, which is really awesome, as I'm sure you can relate to the growth as an entrepreneur and how exciting that is to see it kind of grow time over time. So yeah, like what you said earlier, I really enjoy tapping into what makes each business that I work with different, what makes them unique, and creating tailored support systems for them to improve their business efficiency, the quality of the output, that they are delivering to their clients, and the team's success overall. Is your team happy? Are you happy? Are you still doing what you set out to do? Yeah, I think everyone deserves a unique and tailored system created just for them.
Yeah, I really love that overview, Kat, especially because you even talked about it at the beginning of your career when you entered a new industry, you were figuring things out. And I would argue that what you do now as an operations agency that helps others navigate those waters, having real operations is the opposite of figuring things out. And it's so funny because within the entrepreneurial community, we pride ourselves on just figuring things out as we go. But of course, we're better set up for success when we take operations seriously and when we have a strategy and an intention behind those operations. So, Kat, for all those listeners at all different stages of their business journeys, what the heck are operations? What are all the things that fall under that umbrella?
Well, great question. Your operations is really, okay, let's break it down. So, like you said, as an entrepreneur and you're working just by yourself in your business, you know how to do all of the things. You're figuring it out in live time, like you said. And you keep that information within your brain and kind of work through the processes as they come at you, very reactive. But as you're growing, as you're bringing people onto your team, you start to realize, okay, how can I get this information out of my brain and into the brains of my employees and make sure that it's effectively communicated so that they're operating at the level that I would hope them to. They are feeling success and pride in their own work, and you're getting the results that you want, from your company. So I think a lot of the breakdowns within operations happen by still maintaining to kind of operate in that same solo entrepreneur way without putting to paper or putting to practice all of these processes within your company that can then be used by other people.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kat, I'm going to call myself out here on the air. You obviously didn't know this or expect this, but I'll never forget back in 2012 when I started my marketing agency back in Boston. I'll never forget the first client that I got because I was 22 years old with my business partner. We walked into a local sandwich company and we said, we'd like to speak to the owner. And this huge Italian guy looked down at us and he said, I'm the owner. What do you want? And we made our pitch. And Kat, at the end of our pitch, he actually said to us, he goes, yeah, I'm in. What are the next steps? And we had no idea. We did not plan for that yes. And so the best we could come up with is we will email you a contract and the next steps. Yeah, exactly. So talk to us about that because it is a real experience for so many entrepreneurs, whether they're starting out or even if they're more seasoned. I think the bigger point is that there's things that happen on the fly. And the first time we're figuring it out, but then we should have those repeatable operations to actually have workflows that happen from there. So for so many entrepreneurs who probably don't have these operations in place, how do you start planning for these things? What are the aspects of the business, whether it's onboarding or sales or marketing or customer service? How do we even begin to start planning for things that we may or may not have experienced yet?
I think it's as simple as putting pen to paper or however you like to be in flow, whether it's typing, whether it's paper, whether, it's making a mood board, whatever gets your creative juices flowing, right, is how you should start. And break it down into manageable things. Don't just say, today I'm going to plan the processes of my entire company. Not going to work. Break it down into smaller, actionable steps, and really think through. Like you said, your example, you get a client or someone says, I'm interested in working with you. Okay, what happens next? What would you like to happen next? I guess is a better question. Would you like to then send them information about your company and your pricing and your structure and then let them tell you if they're still interested after that? Or have they already seen that information and then they're coming to you still wanting to work with you? What does the first call look like? Is it virtual? Is it over the phone? Is it in person? What questions are you asking them to assess if they are an appropriate client for you, for your process? Once they are ready to dive in and start, okay, do you have an agreement? What is that agreement? What are the terms that you need to kind of, you know what I mean? It just kind of goes down and down and down. It gets very granular, but it's as simple as just putting down what you envision or what you would like to happen and how the process would like to be. And you can really kind of create and develop it from there. And it's a living document. It's going to change. And I think allowing for room, maybe quarterly, however, big your team is, however long you can, or however often you can bake in time for assessment to allow yourself to look back and say, all right, what does my process look like? And is it actually working for me? Are there ways that I need to adjust it?
Yeah, which keyword right there that you've already brought up in today's conversation, that P word of process, is we have to imagine what that process is going to look like. I'm a big fan. For me, it's Post-it notes. I will map out an entire flow with Post-it notes on the wall or even on my desk. And I think it's so important to ask ourselves that question, which, thinking about the work that you do in the business that you've built, I think it's so cool that you work in these creative industries, because I would imagine those types of businesses, those types of entrepreneurs and owners and people within those businesses, they have no shortage of ideas, Kat. So give us some insights from within those industries of where are they falling short? These are creative people with all these ideas. What's so difficult about operations that fortunately you're able to help them with?
That's a great question. I like to joke that my psychology degree helps me work with creative people. I'm a creative person myself. I understand the roller coaster of emotions that happens within the creative process. And I would say the thing that's coming up for me as number one for creative industries is the pressure to adjust your process when you're getting pushback from a client. I think that comes up for me, number one. Wanting to make sure that your clients are happy, of course, number one, is top priority, I'm sure, for a lot of business owners. But I feel that within the creative industries, there can be a big pressure to, if something's not working out, let me adjust my process. I'll make concessions to you, and I'll change this around, and I'll make this happen for you no matter what. But the problem that happens when you do that is you're not creating a repeatable process. And it's then in turn even more challenging for your employees or anyone that's helping you with these projects to know how to efficiently run the next project. Are we running it like the previous one, or are we running it like the one that we established the process for?
Yeah, it's real stuff. I would actually argue all of us face this in our own businesses as well. It's a question of flexibility versus rigidity. And I remember earlier on in my entrepreneurial journey, Kat, quite honestly, I would take any job that was presented to me. If someone had a website project, if someone had an SEO project, I was saying yes to all of these things. So I had no standardized processes, but I was getting revenue, and that was important to me at the time. But what I didn't realize is that it was holding me back from scalability. It was holding me back from real revenue trajectory and a growth pattern that I could actually repeat, which I think repeatability, it's probably one of the most underrated things about entrepreneurial journeys. So talk to us about that, rigidity versus flexibility. Obviously there's a balance there, but how do you navigate those waters with your clients? And also, if you've got some personal anecdotes, because you are a full-time entrepreneur these days. So as you've grown your business as well, what has that looked like to figure that out for your own business?
Okay, well, rigidity versus flexibility. I would say when you're faced in that situation, one, hopefully you have the ability or the past communication with your client that explains what your process is. But if you don't, and you're hoping to just stick to what you feel needs to be right, I would say bring in maybe your employees or maybe a sounding board partner if you have one, or just have a talk with yourself. Is this worth it for this project in the long run if I make this change? Is it going to be a successful project for me in the long run if I make this change? And if yes, then you can come to a compromise and make some flexibility. But I would urge you to make sure you notate that in your internal process or notes, so that when the project is done and you're doing an assessment, you can kind of look back and say, did it work for me when I made that change? If it did, perhaps that's something that you can roll out into more of your processes moving forward. And if not, you have it documented that this is something that we want to avoid to do in the future. As far as an anecdote, I would also say that it can be challenging to narrow down which clients you take on. But over time, I think with the understanding of, like you said, scalability and repeatability for your business, it's good to narrow down those that are really eager to work with you for the services that you offer, and really trying to recognize, is this person working with me to in turn benefit themselves? And are they going to really want to implement these changes into their life? That for me has been something that I have to ask myself if I'm in a rock or a hard place.
Yeah, I love how candidly you talk about that topic, because I think we all learn early on in our entrepreneurial journeys the meaning of a PITA client, those pain in the butt clients that we take because we do love instant gratification, but it's important. It is part of our growth journeys as we mature as entrepreneurs and as business owners to think more strategically. And you pointed out so articulately there is think long term. Don't just chase those immediate answers. And Kat, I will say, I feel like you spilled a few of your secrets right there, because you talk about documentation, and I feel like that alludes to the fact, and it's something that I came across as I looked into all the cool things that you've done with your company, is that obviously you're an organized person. So talk to us about some of those tools, because hearing you talk about documentation, I can only imagine you have a lot of documentation for your clients as well as for your own business. What are some of your favorite organizational tools that you use either internally or with your clients?
I'm a big fan of the Google Suite. So for me, I love being able to link to documents that live within an ultimate project folder. I'm going to get really nerdy on this for a bit, but let's just say if you're using something like the Google Suite to organize your company's documents, you can have a very clearly laid out folders and subfolders of everything that you need to reference for your company. There can be a section for new employees to onboard, where you can have your standard operating procedures or your employee workbook or manual, or everything as far as, here's how you use the kitchen, don't microwave fish, please, or whatever the rules are for the office. It's all very clearly laid out. There can be a document that shows where everything is for someone that might not be as familiar with your file nomenclature or where things are located. So it really goes, for me, a good tool is something that you can, one, organize your files and your documents and, your day-to-day usages effectively, but also that can be visually useful for someone who might not know where things are located.
Yeah, I really appreciate those insights. As someone who, gosh, do I love tools that make my life easy. It's always cool to see the tech stack behind the scenes of other entrepreneurs. And I do want to switch gears a little bit and speak not just as the subject matter expert that you are, but also entrepreneur to entrepreneur. Since you are one of us, and we so celebrate the fact that you've had your own growth journey up to this point, and that you've grown an awesome team doing really cool work in the world. But I will say, from the outside looking in, I don't often see this word pop up publicly in the work that entrepreneurs do. And I love digging into it with people, because right on your website, it says empowering creativity through intuitive business support. I want to talk about that word, intuition, because it's clear to me, you actually said it a little bit earlier in one of your answers, is sometimes maybe we need to look inside. We need to trust that voice and that energy inside of us to follow that intuition. Talk to us about the importance of intuition, because clearly you feel strongly about it. It's something that you tap into in the work that you do. So I'd love for you to share some of that with listeners who maybe aren't as confident in their intuition, or sometimes ignore it a little more than we should.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I am really passionate about this. I think there's a lot of noise out there, right? If you're looking for business support, there are a million and one ways you're going to find on this. Use this program, talk to this person. You should be doing it like this. And it can get confusing. It can get hard. It can kind of lead to decision fatigue, I think, over time, and worrying if you're not making the right decisions or doing the right thing for your business. I don't believe in one size fits all solutions. I believe in really taking the time to learn about my business owners and their team and their mission and their passion and why they started this. And how do they like to think? How do they like to work? How do they like their tasks organized? How do they like things, visually appeal to them? Because that in turn affects how their processes will be outlined, what programs they're going to use, how they communicate with their team, how their team communicates with their clients. It's all connected, not to sound too California woo-woo over here, but I do believe that there are enough programs out there and there are enough ways to solve the solution that you can in turn provide a unique solution that works for that business owner and for how their brain works.
Yeah, for sure. I love the way that you say that. And as someone who lived in LA for quite some time, it's all good to get California woo-woo. That's very much welcome here on the show. Kat, I want to ask you this, though, because a lot of people, when they do go to your website, we're going to talk about the link at the end of today's episode. It's kat&co.org. There's a total spoiler alert, but we will talk more about your links and all of that at the end of today's episode. But to me, one thing that I really admire is the way that your brand shows up in the world. And I know we've talked about you being a creative person and you love sinking your teeth into that, but it just seems to me, looking at your website, that the fonts are so particular and so beautiful. The words that you underline and that you circle, there's so much intention behind all of the things that you do on your website. Talk to us about that brand, because I feel like when we hear people come on shows like this one, we think, oh my gosh, Kat's so lucky. It's the finished product. Kat, give us some real and raw insights into the evolution of Kat&Co along the way.
I don't really know where to start. I mean, I made it myself, so it's just straight from my brain. I'm a very visual person. When I am trying to solve a problem, even as analytical and, and logistical that I get in providing solutions for my clients, I'm still very visual about it. And before I put words to paper or words to a document, I am visually thinking about what the end product looks like. And that helps me get to that end product. So for me, when I was starting I actually just remembered how I built my website was we were driving home from Napa and I built it under 5 hours while driving in a car. I wasn't driving, but I was in a car. It just kind of came to me. And I really feel that if you are putting enough, going back to intention, putting enough intention behind how you want your brand to feel and the types of services that you want to offer, then when you start communicating that to your designer, or if you're building it yourself, really tap back into that and say, is this decision aligning with that? Is this decision going to make it feel the same way that it feels in my head? I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And actually, I'm going to say in almost 1,000 episodes, you are for sure the first guest and first entrepreneur we've had on the air that built their website while in a moving car. So huge kudos to you. I'm actually glad that I asked that question as a follow-up to the intuition question, because it really comes down to that, is hearing the fact that you sat down and with your hands and with your mind and your mind's eye, you put this stuff together because you tapped into what you knew you wanted to put into the world. And it so shows in the way that your brand shows up, which leads me to ask you about your packages themselves. Because Kat, obviously here on the show, we don't sell things, but I think that there's so many lessons to be learned in the way that you even the way that you serve your clients. I mean, your packages are laid out right on your website, owner to owner sessions where they work with you one-on-one. That's really cool to get that human feedback, as well as ready to use templates. Talk to us, for listeners who obviously they haven't seen your packages like I have. Talk to us about the way that you've structured your services, knowing the types of clients that you want to serve.
Also, I want to go back to how building my website. I just want to point out that was not the only draft. It has changed so many times since that time. So just allow your process to evolve over time. And when you need to change it, change it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so going to packages, that idea for me, I think maybe ties back to my time in custom furniture, where the idea of I can help you create anything you want. You know, if you're making a custom furniture, maybe you're making a custom bed, let's say. It can be any size, any color, any material, any type of storage solution, anything. And I realized while working in that industry, it can be really challenging for the purchaser or the buyer to wrap their head around that and actually make a selection. So I realized that, you know, through all of the different types of services I offer and my company offers, I wanted to provide a secondary solution that was more to the point, right? So there's, yes, of course, we can, you know, sign on, be in agreement, be your consultant, be your thought partner, however our agreement wants to look like. That can be one side of it. And then the other side is, maybe you know what you want and you just need a really quick solution or someone to work it through with you in live time, someone to, provide thoughtful questions back to your thought processes and help you kind of assess it. That's my idea, was for the one-on-one, the owner to owner session. Or maybe you need a type of template created for you. You just don't really know how to do it. So that's kind of where I came to that. So the packages for me were just more of a direct, quick and easy solution for people that might not be able to engage in a larger agreement, or might not be able to wrap their heads around that. So yeah, I just wanted to provide options for different tiers.
Yeah, and I think that's such a thoughtful way of going about this, is thinking about the people on the other side of it, which obviously when you're building out processes and workflows, that's exactly what you do, is you think about the human beings on the other side of that table. So I'll say this actually here on the air, Kat, is that one thing I'm always fascinated by when I talk to fellow entrepreneurs is the catalyst, the decision point for so many of their clients working with these types of creative businesses and in the industries that you operate in. I'm curious, what is that catalyst, or maybe it's a pain point that makes them say, and we've experienced this, myself and you, as we've grown our own businesses as well, that makes us say, wait, hold on a second, I need help. I need to actually put operations and workflows together. What's usually that thing? Is it a certain point in their revenue growth? Is it when they start running into scalability issues? I'd love to hear some insights from the companies that you work with.
I'll say specifically for interior designers, a lot of the times it's either our systems are not working for us and I'm scared to take on a new client. That's one part of it. Like, I know we could be doing this better. And I don't want to bring on someone new. For interior designers, I'll point out, an average project length is at least a couple years. So it's a big deal to bring on a new client, start working with a new client, especially if you feel like your systems might not be working as top tier as they could. And another thing that sticks out to me is perhaps when they are trying to grow their team and they realize, I work with a lot of very small companies, which I think is my bread and butter. I love working with smaller companies, usually under 10 people. But perhaps it's just the owner and they're ready to bring on their first employee, or it's them and another employee and they're ready to bring on the third. And it's really that moment of realization of, oh, we don't know how to explain what we do to someone else. And how do we make sure that they're coming in and they know how to do their job effectively and can hit the ground running and feel proud of the work they're doing?
Yes, just a few examples of real life inflection points. You're bringing up all my scars and past traumas of realizing all the things in my 16-year entrepreneurial journey that I was definitely unprepared to tackle. But fortunately, there's amazing people like you that are providing these services, that are giving value on shows like this one. So I so appreciate firsthand the work that you do, because it is incredibly important work. And I do want to ask you, I want to put you on the spot for a second, Kat, because you're also doing this for yourself. And I know that there's that phrase of the cobbler's son has no shoes. When I was running my SEO agency, I never took the time to search engine optimize my own website because I was doing it for all of my clients. Talk to us about your realizations and revelations of doing all of this stuff within the context of your own business. Have you found the time? Is it something that surprised you, the workload of being an entrepreneur? Give us some insights there.
Yeah. Well, I will say that it can be challenging to context switch a lot when you have multiple clients and you're working. As I said earlier, people use different programs. So you might be doing task management for someone in Asana, and then you have to jump over to Basecamp, and then you have to jump over to Monday, and then you have to jump over to Studio Designer, which is specific to the interiors industry. And there's a whole host of programs, and everyone uses a different login, and everyone has a different way of how they like things represented. So when it comes to my own tasks, I was feeling, quite honestly, a little burnt out and not wanting to put my tasks into an actual task management processor. So I have since changed that, but I did notice that was something that was not working as effectively for myself at, ironically doing it for others, but not for myself. So I've since switched to a program. It's called Notion, and I keep all of my tasks per client and all my notes and everything there. And what's handy about that is none of my other clients use it. So it's unique to me, and it's a unique program that only my thoughts are in there. And I found that to be helpful for me in order to keep things separate.
Yes. Ooh, Notion is my love language in business. I think Notion is the most underrated tool out there. Pretty much all of my businesses live inside of Notion. So it's fun because you can also be creative in there. You can color code things. You can create tables and different views. Gosh, I love Notion. It's a really cool place to operate our businesses out of. So very cool hearing the real life tools that you use. And Kat, at the end of these episodes, I always love to ask this broad question because I have no idea which direction you're going to take this answer in, and that is, what's the one takeaway? You've shared so many nuggets of knowledge as a subject matter expert when it comes to business operations, but also with your entrepreneurial hat on as a fellow entrepreneur. So with all of that in mind, and knowing that our listeners are at various stages of their growth journeys, what's the one thing that you want to leave every listener with in today's episode?
No pressure, right? I would say, if there's something in your business that is causing you or your employees continued headache, just break it down into tangible steps, whether it's just you doing this as an exercise together or together with yourself, I should say. If that's the case, leave your office and do it somewhere else, and allow your brain to kind of have a different way of functioning. If you're doing it with your team, make it a special exercise where you guys are kind of promote open communication and work through these things together. But just as I said earlier, start it from the very smallest first step and work through those steps together. And I really think that it allows you to see different perspectives of your process that you might not have considered earlier, and see the perspective of the process from the side of your client or perhaps your employees. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but for example, if your client is continually getting frustrated about your pricing structure, really think down and think back to, when was the first time that I shared this with them? Have I shared it with them since? have I discussed it with them since? And when I did discuss it with them, was it clear? Was it concise? Was it branded with my company's branding? Was it in alignment with how I want my deliverables to look? That's kind of where you can start to find, oh, maybe I should have educated my client a little bit more in the beginning. And here's where I would like to fit that education into my process. And really, start from small tasks, and then you'll start finding ways to implement solutions.
Yes, really powerful advice. I've always loved that Martin Luther King Jr. quote, which is, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. And Kat, it fits in so well with the type of the work that you do. And also, you're making my job easy here today, because it's also a natural segue for if listeners want to reach out to you and do this in partnership with you. You have a very collaborative and supportive approach to the way that you serve your clients. You've shared some of it with us here today. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah. You can find me on my website, which is kat&co.org. It's spelled out in the website. So that's katandco.org. There you can request or book, I should say, a complimentary discovery call. You can submit any inquiries for working together. And I also want to note that I love networking with other like-minded business owners. So I'm always down to have a coffee chat or meet you or just chat business. So feel free to shoot me an email, which is at kat@katandco.org.
Yes, listeners, you already know the drill. We are making it as easy as possible for you to find all of Kat's links down below in the show notes, wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You'll find her business website at kat&co.org. That's Kat with a K, katandco.org. But you don't have to remember that. You can click right on through down below in the show notes. And also, I'm going to further echo what you just shared, Kat, is that way too few people take the big step of reaching out and having amazing entrepreneurs in their network. Every entrepreneurial conversation that I have, it gives me fresh insights into the way I see the world, into the way that I see my own business. I always leave with ideas. So huge kudos to you for making that open invite to your fellow entrepreneurs. So listeners, less than 1% of people who tune into podcasts or YouTube videos or read a business book ever take action. So you'll also find Kat's personal LinkedIn link down below. We're going to include that in the show notes. So Kat, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian. It was a pleasure.